Dihya in Amazigh in Berber language, meaning caretaker, was an Amazigh Berber Queen or chieftain in the 7th century who was a leader in a military campaign against the Umayyad caliphate that was invading and colonizing North Africa at this time. Born into the Yarava clan of the Zenata Amazigh tribe or into the Lawata tribe. The sources are disagreeing about which tribe she belonged to, but the Zenata tribe seems to be the more likely tribe she belonged to, as they are more present in the area from where she came from and began her campaign. The Aures Mountains. Also, they are a much larger group than the Lawata that also died out later. And not that much later, as they were gone in a couple of hundreds of years after these events, whereas the Zenata continued to live on, which probably implies a lot about the strength of the tribe and thus, indirectly, its likelihood of actually having engaged in military conflicts with the Umayyads, and thus the likelihood of Dihya coming from this group is higher, as she was engaged in a conflict against the Umayyads. And the Zenata tribe is actually rather important historically, as many rather famous dynasties later in history, in what is modern day Morocco and Algeria, are associated with them. For example, the Zayanid dynasty in Algeria and the Marinids and Wattassids in Morocco all were either of Zenata origin or were heavily supported by Zenata tribal groups. So quite an influential and important group historically, and it was this tribe that Dihya would use as she became queen of an Amazigh state spreading from the mountains of northeastern Algeria, the Aures, to the dunes of northwestern Libya, after she had succeeded the previous king Koseila. An interesting fact about Dihya is that she is mostly believed to have been religiously Jewish or pagan. Jewish because the Jews had actually been converting a lot of people around the world at this time. You have, for example, the Himyar in Yemen that converted to Judaism a couple of centuries before the time of Dihya, and large converted groups in what is modern day Ethiopia at this time. Judaism during this time was not as against conversions into Judaism as it would become later, and parts of the Zenata tribe had converted to Judaism too, so Dihya would be part of this section of the tribe that had converted to Judaism from paganism, or she would have been a pagan like other parts of the tribe. Though it should be said that the sources that describe her as a pagan seem to be more biased against her than the sources that describe her as a Jew, maybe giving credence to her Jewish background. Whatever her religion might have been, she is famous because she fought against the Umayyad Caliphate's expansion into North Africa, against Umayyad generals such as Musa ibn Nusayr and Hassan ibn Nu'man. Hassan ibn Nu'man would be seeking Dihya as he wanted to fight the most powerful of enemies that existed, so that he could get recognition for his own prowess and military might. A real hot-headed person, in other words. And he and Dihya would clash in Dihya's most notable battle, which was the Battle of Meskiana in 698, where she successfully defeated Hassan ibn Nu'man in an ambush in such a way that she completely crushed him, succeeding in taking large parts of the army under Nu'man as prisoners, following a massive rout, and he fled to the eastern coasts of Libya. But Dihya correctly understood that this wasn't the end, and that the Umayyads would send further armies to crush her, among them Musa ibn Nusayr, and Hassan ibn al-Nu'man would come back with powerful reinforcements. This made her adopt a scorched earth policy, having mixed results as she burned down villages and farmland and did constant raids against the invading Arab forces of Hassan ibn al-Nu'man and Musa ibn Nusayr. Eventually, Hassan ibn al-Nu'man would meet Dihya at the Battle of Tabarka in 702 or 703, where he would defeat her, and where Dihya would meet her fate. Her true cause of death is still a mystery, as she had either been slain in battle or she had committed suicide to prevent capture. But in any case, the Battle of Tabarka would be her end. But her story would not end there, as today Dihya is seen as a symbol of feminism and indigenous power in North Africa. Like Queen Boudraa of the Celts, who faced the Romans, an outsider coming to conquer, but in the end, despite a valiant effort, was defeated. The Arabic nickname for Dihya is al-Kahina, which means priestess or seer, and has strong negative connotations with polytheism, witchcraft and sorcery. And there has existed many myths about her in the sources, such as that she was over 100 years old and practiced magic in order to defeat her enemies, that she was of enormous size, and that she was enchantingly beautiful. And the mythology surrounding her was further built on by later writers. But the entire mythology surrounding her probably began as an attempt by the Umayyad caliphate and their various supporters to vilify her, to make her as different as possible from themselves, the Muslim conquerors coming to conquer and open North Africa to Islam. Probably this vilification was done to maybe cover up the fact that the Umayyads and the almost constant Islamic expansion that had happened before was temporarily stopped by a Berber woman that had dealt the Umayyad forces crushing defeats before she was defeated herself. And this was highly embarrassing for the Umayyads, as the Umayyads during this time were extreme Arab supremacists, even for this time, and saw all non-Arabs as basically second-degree humans. And to add insult to injury, it was also a woman. Thus, these myths about Dihya were probably spread by Umayyad sympathizers and supporters in order to explain why they were defeated, so that the Umayyads could retain their honor by saying that it was due to magic and foul pagan rituals, and that they now had defeated this devious threat. And in more modern times, al-Kahina became a symbol of resistance against French colonization in the Maghreb region of Morocco, Algeria and Tunisia and Libya from the 19th to the 20th century, as Dihya's struggle against the Umayyads were seen as mirroring the local inhabitants of the Maghreb region's struggle against the French colonial power. The vilified and reviled resistance movement had now been taken as a symbol of resistance, of good resistance against a colonial power, showing just how various figures in history can be reinterpreted to fit various agendas and politics. And speaking about historical women and the reinterpretations about them, I would recommend you to watch my video about As-Sayyidatu al-Hurra, a later female ruler in what is modern day Morocco, as it touches upon a similar theme regarding gender roles and reinterpretation of women.
Please do subscribe, as it would help the channel spread awareness about the humanities.
اشتركوا بالقناة من فضلكم.